For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he has taunted and defied the armies of the living God? So do you see David's perspective here was not, this man is coming against me. His perspective was, this man is coming against the army of God. So if he wanted to participate in being the solution to this, he needed to go through the protocol of how he could now come and be the champion fighter from the army of God to this Philistine, okay? So that's why his decision, it's not that Saul made the decision for David. It was that David made a decision that he could solve this problem, but he went through the protocol to get the permission in order for him to be able to fight this giant. And in order to do that, he did not just show up and said, well, you're going to let me do it because I'm the only guy that could fight him, okay? That would just be simply pride again, okay? But instead, he did two things. When he got in front of the king, who was the decision maker to give him the opportunity to fight the giant, he did not rehash to Saul what his brother said about him, how his brother didn't think that he was a good enough shepherd and that he left a little, some old person, some terrible person with his sheep, and that when he was little, they had a dinner and they didn't call him to dinner, but God saw that he was fit, and so God called him to dinner, and by that result, you should qualify me to go up against this giant because my brother couldn't do it. No. What David did instead was he gave the king the proper resume that was necessary to convince the king that he knows how to fight big things, okay? So David said to Saul, I have killed these wild animals that will come up against the sheep. I would kill them with my bare hands. And he went into details how he killed them. He said, I would hit them first. That didn't work. Then I would come at them with my bare hands. And so Saul then saw him as qualified, at least better than anybody else that presented themselves. And Saul gave him the opportunity. So in this case of decision making, David made the decision to be the one to come up against this man simply because of his defiance of God and against God's army, but he had to be able to come through the army in order to do the fight. That made it legitimate. That made it a legitimate fight. This army was fighting against that army. Because Goliath's own words was, give me a man that could fight me. Well, the man showed up in the form of a teenage boy, and he went through the proper protocol to get the job done. Now, in the case of Mary, she made a decision on the spot to carry the child, Jesus. The difference was, as far as protocol goes, she was saying yes to her will. She was using her will to say yes to an assignment from God. So when God asks us to do something, he's asking us to do it. And it requires our will to say yes or no. Now, this is a touchy situation. Many people have been taught and think that if they can say that I would like to do this, but my child, my spouse, my boss, the government, the pastor, my company, and all these different people won't let me do it. They think that gives them the reason why they can't. It's just they can't do it. They really would like to, but they just can't. Now, God would not ask you to do something that is impossible for you to do if he knows you didn't have the permission to say yes. God doesn't waste his time. He wouldn't ask you a question to answer that you need to answer him if you have no permission to say yes. So God didn't wake up David from the pasture where he was tending his flock to ask him if he would go fight Goliath for him. He didn't do that. But David would have said yes anyway. But then David would have still gone through the protocol of the proper way of doing it. Now for Mary, there was no protocol to go through. It was her making a decision that would change her own life. It is her free will that she was using to choose God's way. Okay? And same thing with Joseph, her fiance. He was making a decision for himself, thinking that Mary did something wrong, so he will have mercy on her and do it quietly. But remember, the angel went and he had a dream. And the dream gave him an instruction of what he should do. And he used his own will again. And he followed the instruction and said, yes, I will do what you asked me to do. He did not have a meeting with the family. He did not go consult 50 friends and his father and all elders of the community to see if they think this is true. He answered God for himself. So when you're making a decision, the first step is to see that something is wrong and you can make a difference and you say yes. But the second level is, if there is protocol to follow, you follow protocol. You don't just go insert yourself. This happens a lot. So if somebody is having a hard time where they're constantly being rejected as a leader or constantly being rejected as being accepted, okay? And they may think that if they go into certain places, right, that those places will be able to accept them better, right? And so they go to those places and they try to assert themselves in some type of leadership position, some type of counseling position, some type of like authority figure in something. But they were never appointed in that position. They never went through the protocol to be able to do that, to have the credibility in that church, in that office, in that building to do this, and they get rejected. And then they feel like the world is against them. That's another trap of the enemy, to cause you to dilute your gift, to devalue it by using it wrongfully. Jesus never used his gift or operated in the anointing of God where faith was not present. The exchange for what Jesus did was the people's faith. They had to offer their faith, and he offered what their faith was able to get them. That's what he said. He said, according to your faith, so be it unto you. When he was in his own hometown, he couldn't do many miracles there because the people had no faith in what he was saying and what he could do. For your own life, if you're in a place where people have no faith in you as a person, like they don't respect your authority, they don't respect your gift, they don't think it's good enough or it's valid, you have to ask yourself a few questions. First of all, have you devalued your gift and presented it to them in a way that's so devaluing that they can't accept it? They think you're a joke. Or is that how they treat everyone with that gift, or a majority of the people with that gift? Well, in that case, then it's not a place that you want to keep offering your gift. If we follow the example of Jesus, he left. So if there were people in that environment that needed your gift, they'll know where to find you if you have to leave. Okay? Now, all of these decisions to stay or to leave or to start something or to keep doing something, they must be bathed in prayer. They must have the leading of the Holy Spirit. And these things occur by first securing yourself in the Word of God and getting a good standard and a good base before you move on in decisions. One of the traps I see for women in leadership is offense. Women get offended because people reject them, which it happens a lot. Women do get rejected a lot in leadership. They get devalued by people's words. They get told you're not allowed to lead, you're not supposed to speak, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. And so as a result, they build up these barriers and these walls. And so when they start leading now, they're leading from a position of defense or pushing their way through. And that in itself will devalue your leadership position. Being emotional, being outrageous, and all this is part of your personality. That wouldn't devalue your leadership as much as you doing it with a motive and with a heart and with the mindset that if I don't do it this strong, or if I don't take my turn, if I don't tell them like it is, then my gift will never be used, and then it will be against God, and they need to know the truth. And see, Jesus never did that. He never, ever did that, because he understood the value of what he did. And he understood that if somebody wanted what he had, they had to come get it with faith. And so that's what my challenge to you today is. How have you been presenting your leadership gift? Now, I told you a story about, someone asking if they could speak to my employee to verify some information. And that's when the Lord showed me a lot of women feel the need to be verified. They're constantly being asked to be verified when they say something. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't lash out at the person. I just simply answered their question. I said, no, you don't need to talk to my employee. I've given you enough evidence. You can make decisions with that. And they said, oh, okay. I said, yes. So I didn't go, I can't believe that you want to talk to my employee over me. Now, when I hung up and I relayed the conversation to other people that I know well, that know me well, I said, I found a trap that I think a lot of women go through and they don't even realize what to do. And that's what started my entire journey here to talk about leadership. And maybe men have the same problem too, who may not have as much experience in a field, and they're up against more seasoned people in their field. They may feel the same way. So it's not just related to women, but I do know a lot of women feel this way. So here's what happens. Test yourself to see if you feel the need to be verified. Okay, here are some of the scenarios that may happen. Number one, you feel that when your authority is questioned or when your evidence is questioned, you want to present people who could back you up, right? So you want, number one, you will tell, well, this person thinks I'm good and that person thinks I'm good and this person thinks I'm good, okay? And number two, when you are presenting a case, if you're doing a presentation, if you're showing your resume, if you're doing something as far as a presentation to persuade someone that you are capable of doing a job, you add extra things in there that somebody else might not do. You always say, well, we got to do extra. Because, they just don't accept women, or they don't just accept this person, or they don't just, because I'm not educated enough, so I have to give extra. Well, here's the thing. When we do those things, we're operating from the natural perspective. So we're thinking that when we go into these scenarios, that our natural ability, our natural experience is going to get us the job. It's going to get us the position. Now that leaves God out of it. What you have to know is if God asks you to do something, he's empowered you to do it. And so just you saying what you have to say should be sufficient. Now, if it's a case where you do need to present evidence because it is a scenario that requires evidence, or it's a job interview and you need to show your resume and show where you've worked in a regular standard way, yeah. But if you find yourself adding things to it, or having to overemphasize something simply because you feel like you'll be rejected otherwise, then that's you now switching to the flesh to get you what God told you is yours, if you understand what I'm saying. So these are the traps of intimidation. That's another form of intimidation, to have to overcompensate for where you think you're not good enough. That's an intimidation move. That is trying to overcome intimidation. So you now have to identify these places in your life where you may have been doing this. And it's very simple to correct. What you need to do is you need to find out what you've been doing and find out why you're doing it. And if you have wrong teaching, if you have a wrong mindset on the subject, you need to change your mindset. You need to renew your mind with the correct information, with the proper information. If you don't do that, then you're still going to be using old information to solve a new problem. And it's going to keep recycling over and over and over. And the more often you do it, the more it gets embedded in you and becomes part of your nature. And now you're leading instinctively by doing these actions. It can be very tiring to lead this way. So I want to encourage you today that if you've had these scenarios in your life in leadership and you want to make a change, the first level of change is to always look to yourself and see what you have been allowing, what you have been accommodating, what you have been feeling comfortable with, and ask the Holy Spirit to show you where you need to make changes, and then start making changes in those places. I hope that this series has been a help to you and a blessing to your life, and that it has enabled you to become a better leader or even start leading things that you might have left undone in your life. I look forward to teaching you more subjects on more subject matters. And of course, I want to hear from you. So make sure that you send us a note, you leave a comment, you send us an email, let us know what your questions are. Let me know what it is, subject matter that you'd like to address, and I'd be happy to do so. God bless you. See you next time. Fiona here. Today I want to talk to you about something amazing and awesome, something that you should remember for the rest of your life. And that is the best winning strategy that you could ever have. You're really going to want to share this with your friends, or maybe you don't, because then they'll know your strategy. But you could have this strategy work for you where even people who've worked with you before, family members, people you have actually had negotiations with, worked with before, they cannot predict what you're going to do next. And this will help you a lot in your life. Whenever you are in a fight for your life, or whenever you are in a battle where one person wins, the other one doesn't. Even if you're in negotiations for a win-win solution, there are things that you can do that would allow you to have the winning edge. The number one rule for a winning strategy, you ready for this? The number one rule is this. It's simply this. This is all really that there is to it, is to be unpredictable. I said it. It's to be unpredictable. That means that nobody knows what you're going to do, even if they know you the best. You will just surprise them with how you do something. Now, they might know generally what your actions will be. For example, if you're hungry, you're going to find something to eat. But, they may not know what is it that she's going to eat today. That's just a simple analogy. But if someone's duked it out with you before, they might know you're not just going to let it go. You're going to come and you're going to solve this problem, but they would have no idea what it is you're going to do. They may even know everything you're capable of doing, but because you are unpredictable, they don't really know what it is you're going to do. And this is an edge that you must keep for the rest of your life. I know I'm moving around a lot, but I'm trying to find the best angle for you to be able to view this without a big light behind me to shine. But Jesus took this approach. You remember when he healed the sick? I know a lot of you have probably seen the stories in the Bible of Jesus healing the sick. He really, I don't even know if there's an instance where he did stuff exactly the same. He always did things differently. And I've heard many people preach it. I've probably preached it. My husband's probably preached it, where Jesus did things differently, so we can see that it's not just one formula of how you do something that brings about healing. It's just the anointing and the power of God and what Jesus did that brings about the healing. But also, the enemy would never be able to figure out what is Jesus going to do to heal this person this time. He did it differently every single time. And that's how you should operate your life. You should never approach a problem in your life the exact same way, giving it the exact formula. There might be a process. For example, Jesus would say, "Your faith has made you whole," a lot, or he might do similar things. Where, for example, he wouldn't turn someone away if they came to him. So those are predictable things. But so the action that everyone knows is Jesus will heal, he will solve the problem. Yeah, do you know today, actually, speaking of that, today a lot of people have a problem understanding that. They think that they don't, if it doesn't happen, maybe Jesus doesn't want it to, God doesn't want me to have it, or maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe it was just my plight in life. The one thing that was consistent in Jesus's ministry was that he never turned anyone away. Even the lady who he tried to turn away, where he called her, like, where he said, that what you're asking me for belongs to the children, not to dogs. And she said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs from the table. And so she never left without her miracles. She received it, and Jesus gave it to her. So what was unpredictable was how he would do it, what he would do. And this is what you need to develop in your life. It should be very much predictable that you solve every problem that comes across your path, whether it be sickness, whether it be finances, whether it be relationship issues, you will solve that problem. But how you do it and what you do should be so unpredictable that there's not a return answer for you. I had this happen to me today, and it wasn't a bad situation. It was just a situation where I was unpredictable and the person did not know how to respond. And it ended up on a very good note, but I really did floor them with my answer. They weren't prepared for it. I had a call last week from someone who was interested in selling me a coaching package. I'm a coach myself, so they wanted to help me coach better. And so they had a coaching package that they wanted to offer me. That's a pretty high end package, and it costs a lot of money. So I had the sales pitch, the gentleman spoke with me, and we really hit it off. The gentleman, as a matter of fact, I offered him a job on the phone. I said, "Hey, you want to come work for me instead? Or as well, not even just leave where you are, but add me to your list of people that you work for." And so, and him and I really hit it off. We had a great conversation. But as I reviewed the product information that he sent to me, I realized that I just don't click. I just do not click with this coach. And so it would not be wise for me to spend a lot of money to get this help that I just couldn't connect with. And so when he called today to follow up, that was my honest response to him. It was a no. But my no was simply the truth of how I felt about the program. I never demeaned the person because they're very good at what they do and they have great results. I just could not connect with them. And I didn't want to go into a coaching relationship I couldn't connect with. So, but what happened is the gentleman, he said, "I have never, in all the years of doing this, I've heard people say they don't have the finances right now or they don't have the time." And I know he was ready with an answer for that, obviously, because that's what he was possibly expecting me to say. But instead, he said, "I have never heard anyone say that about this. I've never heard anyone say that." I said, "Well," so I certainly caught him off guard. He said, "You have caught me off guard." But what happened is I give this man a no in a very polite way. We certainly will be chatting again, I'm sure, because he will formulate a sales pitch to come back to me with about not connecting with the content or with the person. And I expect him to, because if he is a good salesperson, he should come back to me with this information. But the thing is, I recognized today, and I wanted to share it with you, was simply just how a strategy that's just normal for me. It is natural for me to behave this way, but some people may very well have to work at it because you might just be too predictable, because you just simply like things to be simple and like things to be, and the predictability that you seek and that you work with is simply so you don't feel afraid or so that you're comfortable doing what you've got to do. But I have to tell you, if you keep doing that, Your enemy's going to figure out your every move and counteract it before you even get a chance to play it. So you have got to live a life where you know the enemy may know what you're going to do, and that is you're not leaving this alone. But how you're going to do it and what you're going to do is unpredictable, and they can't figure it out. My family, they have a joke, they try to surprise me with anything, and I wouldn't even know they're trying to surprise me. I would just find out information about the surprise and say to them, hey, I just heard this. Isn't that awesome? And they're like, oh, it was supposed to be a surprise. But I don't try to find out the surprise because I don't even know what's going to happen. But you have to be able to know what's going to happen. So in your life, you have discernment on, so you know when something's going on around you. And the second thing is you need to be unpredictable in your strategies of how you win a fight. That's a strategy I want you to think about. So number one, be unpredictable. And number two, have discernment that you know what's going on around you as much as you can. You might miss a couple things here and there. I sure do. But when you do catch it, boy, the enemy knows he's got to run, because once you get it and you realize you're behind a bit, you start playing catch up, and it's no time at all before that matter is taken care of. I hope this encourages you today. I encourage you to share it with someone that might be losing battles a lot and they're not winning too much. They have to change up their game a bit and become unpredictable. A good way to become unpredictable is to get new information. If you learn something new that your enemy didn't even know that you did, that's a great way to be unpredictable, because they'll always hit you with what they think you know. But anything new you've learned since the last time you had a conversation with them or an encounter with them, they would have no idea what that is. That's a good way to do it as well. Hey guys, hope you have an awesome day. And we're getting ready to start my coaching group next week, actually, October 3rd, I believe it's getting ready to start. Check out my website, FionaInc.com. That's FionaInc.com. And it is my identity reset coaching class. I look forward to talking with you guys. Hey, leave your comments, share this with your friends. God bless you guys. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.